price elasticity of supply. Remember, in my previous video, I spoke about price elasticity of demand. Today, I want to speak about price elasticity of supply. And we'll talk about cross elasticity as well, and some practical implications of elasticity. How does it imply on the way manufacturers or sellers make decisions? How does that information help them to take the right decision for the business? I'll look into that and I'll end this video with different forms of market. So quickly, let's get into it. When we talk about price elasticity of supply, what are we talking about? Remember, I said, anytime you hear the word elasticity, don't look at it like it's a very complicated word. Just think about change. Think about expansion. Think about expansion. That is what elasticity is talking about. So, and what does this mean? So when we talk of price elasticity of supply, the question that we're trying to answer is, how does quantity supply, by a seller change? How does that change when price of the good changes? This is the question that we're trying to answer. Take note. How does the change in price of a good affect the quantity supply by a seller? That is what we want to answer. Remember, when we're talking about the demand, the question was, how does the quantity demand, how does change in price of a good change the quantity demand by a customer? Now we're looking at supply. And remember, it's the seller that will supply. So how does the price of a product changes the price? How does it change the quantity a supplier will produce? So remember, price is a constant thing. And that is why in the formula is always divided by change in price for both elasticity of demand and elasticity of supply. Is always about change in price. For elasticity of demand, it's about how change in price affect change in quantity demanded. But for elasticity of supply, which I will call price elasticity of supply, it's about how does change in price affect the quantity supply. So it's percentage change in quantity supply divided by percentage change in price. So for price elasticity of demand, it is similar, but instead it's about percentage change in quantity demanded, but still divided by percentage change in price. So you can see this is the same for both, but this is the difference, the numerator. So don't get confused. There are two different things. And both of them can be represented in a graph, but let's look at, take for instance, we're looking at these guys, the elasticity of supply. And our normal graph for supply is still the same, price on y-axis, and we have the quantity on x-axis. And because the supply rule is that when the price of a product increases, you expect the quantity to increase as well, because every supplier wants to maximize profit. They want to make more revenue. So if the price is going up, they are happy to produce more. That is why our graph is always a positive sloping graph, like that. However, how can you determine whether a product is much more elastic than the other using the graph? Look at this graph. Let me call this graph for product A. And let me do another graph for product B. Similar graph, price and quantity. And let's say this graph is like this. This is B. Between product A and B, which one is more elastic? Looking at the graph. Look at this graph. Let's look at the B first, this one. This is price. Look at how price has changed from here to here. Huge change here. But let's look at how the quantity has been affected. Look at it, just little. So which means for this graph, you discover that your price elasticity of supply, which we said is percentage of change in quantity supply divided by percentage change in price. So this is your quantity, which is this little change. So which means if this has changed to by say 10%, this is a bigger change, as you can see, much more. So this will have been like 15%. And if you put that in this formula, it means that would be 10% divided by 20% or 15% that we're using. Right? So because that's a bigger change and the answer is less than 1. So that means this product is very inelastic because you can see the price elasticity of supply is less than 1. Let's look at this other graph and let's take 2 points. You can see this point is lower than this point. So which means for this particular graph, the percentage change in quantity supply is bigger than the price. So which means our PES, we have, if this is say 15%, this will probably be like 12% because this gap is bigger than this. So that would be 15% divided by 12%. So that means this answer is greater than 1 and this is more elastic. What summary can we make from this? I haven't known that I like to show you like this so that you don't have to memorize. It means that the steeper means this is very steep. Yeah, I almost turning towards vertical. Yeah, so the steeper the slope, the inelastic the price elasticity. Of the good. So you don't even need to memorize it, you can understand it from the way I've explained it. Very important. And the same thing as applicable to demand. Same thing. The graph is like this, remember? This is price and this is quantity for demand. Yeah, this is demand curve. You have these two graphs and you have something like this. Definitely this is more inelastic because it's very steep and this is elastic. Please take notes because in exams you can have sample graphs and you are asked to deduce which product is most elastic or least elastic or most inelastic or least inelastic. Please just know that the steeper, the more inelastic the elasticity is. Now let's talk about the factors affecting price elasticity of supply. Remember, we also looked at similar factors when we looked at the price elasticity of demand. When we're talking about the availability of substitute, the price, and all that. Now we want to talk about factors affecting price elasticity of supply. And the first one I will talk about is availability. Availability of excess, or we can call it surplus capacity. What are we talking about here? Capacity, when we talk about capacity in production, we're talking about availability of all the factors of labor, factors of production. We're talking of labor, materials, money, that is capital, machine, etc. Everything you need to produce. And why is this important? We have said that price is directly proportional to quantity supply. What does that mean? We are saying that if price goes up, quantity produced will also go up. We're going to supply more quantity. However, what we are saying now is that this will only make sense if we even have excess capacity to produce more. So if we don't have people to produce more, or we don't have more materials available that are already in excess to produce more, or machine that is idle that we can use to produce more, or money to even buy the materials to be able to produce more, then we can't even take advantage of the increase in price. So what this means is that the more the availability of excess capacity, so the excess capacity is directly proportional to price elasticity. Because if there's excess capacity, then there can be change. Remember, I've told you, always see elasticity as a change. That's a simple word to understand it. So if there is no excess capacity, let the price change by 100%. There's nothing you can do. You just be looking at it. You cannot produce more. But if you have excess capacity, then you can take advantage of the increase in price to maximize revenue. The second factor is duration of production. And here we are talking about how long does it take to manufacture the product. If it's going to take 10 days to manufacture the product, compared to a product that will take 1 hour to manufacture, definitely 10 days will be very inelastic. It will take time for the market to realize that more product has been supplied. So the longer the duration, the less elastic, the less change you can see. And that's why I would say this is inversely proportional to price elasticity of supply. But if the duration is short, then you can respond quickly and elasticity will be high because the change in quantity will be very high and we can respond quickly. And the third factor is the ease of entry. Ease of entry. Here we are talking about how easy will it be for a new player to enter and play in that market. Remember, when a product is selling at a very high price, everybody wants to sell. New players want to come in because they realize that people are making money in that place. However, if it is difficult to come in, they will just be looking. And the product you will see being new product supply because of the high in price will be minimal because not so many people can come in. But if it's a place where a lot of people can come in, as the price is going up, everybody is coming in to produce because it's easy to come in, and what happens, the product quantity that will be supplying to that kind of market will rise and will change significantly. So the easier it is, the more elastic the elasticity will be. So please take note of those three factors. Very, very important. Those are the most important factors. There can be more things to consider in terms of things that can affect elasticity, but I took those three as the most important factors that you must know. Now let's look at practical implications, and please pay attention to this because the question is, all this that we are talking about, how does it affect the supplier? We've talked about price elasticity of demand. We've spoken about price elasticity of supply. Now, what is the practical implications? Usually, when we're looking at practical implications, we'll focus on price elasticity of demand. How does it affect? How does price elasticity of demand affect the way a manufacturer should think? How can that influence the decision that needs to be taken? And I'm going to look at that. I'm going to break it down in a way that you will need to understand. Remember, I said price elasticity of demand can be elastic and can be inelastic. However, I told you that you can have unitary elasticity, which means price elasticity is 1. I told you that you can also have elastic, which means it's greater than 1, and it can be inelastic, where it is less than 1. These are the 3 scenarios that I want to look at to explain the practical implications. Because if a company is selling a product that has unitary elasticity, how should the company think about increasing the price of its product? Should it increase the price of its product to make more money, or should it decrease the price of its product to make more money? That is what we want to talk about when we are talking about practical implication. We are saying that how can a company take advantage of its product elasticity? Remember, the rule of demand is that the higher the price, the lower the demand. And this means that the lower the price, the higher the demand. But all of this doesn't make sense to a company, because what the company is after is revenue. But guess what? Revenue is a product of price multiplied by quantity demanded. So which means both this and this together is concern for the company, because that is where the revenue will come from. So you can see, if price is going up here, demand is coming down. If price is coming down here, demand is going up. The question is, how can the company now maximize these 2 scenarios? What should the company do? Should I be increasing my price, but my demand will come down? Would it affect my revenue if I do that? Or, in order to get customers to buy a lot of my product, maybe I should reduce the price. But if I reduce the price and they buy a lot, what happens to my revenue? Does it go up or does it come down? That is the practical implications that we are talking about. So the decision a company would take, either it takes decision A or decision B, depends on the price elasticity of its product. So let me put it this way. Let me do this table for you. So let's assume that we have a product of a company, and let's see the price on this column. Let's say the quantity here and revenue here. Right. So we have original situation when the price used to be 10. The quantity was 40, and the revenue is 10 times 40, which is 400. Right. That's the original situation. Now, let's see what happens when price increases by 10%. So we're going to increase price by 10%. So which means the percentage change in price equals to 10%. Let's say increase. So that means the new price, so this is original and new. So the new price will be 11. But what percentage change are we going to see in quantity? It depends on the type of elasticity that we are dealing with. Remember, if it's a unitary elasticity, which is what I want us to do first. So let's do with elasticity. So let's say it's unitary elasticity, which means it's 1. In that case, what we are saying is that if percentage change in price is 10, then remember, price elasticity of demand is equals to percentage change in quantity demanded divided by percentage change in price. So if percentage change in price is 10, then for price elasticity of demand to be 1, then percentage change in quantity demand must also be 10%. And we know that if price goes up, demand will come down. So which means the quantity demanded will also come down by 10%. And that makes the new quantity to be 36. So our revenue, which is 11 times 36, will be 396. So the implication is this. Let's put another column to summarize the implication. Remember, I said implication is about the impact on revenue. Yeah, so it's a revenue implication. So invariably, what we are saying is that there is no change in revenue because 400 is almost the same thing as 396. So which means revenue is same. So which means if you have a product that has a unitary elasticity, whether you increase or decrease your price, it doesn't affect your revenue. So it's just waste of administrative effort to do that. So you rather don't want to do it. Let's look for another price elasticity of demand. Yeah, let's assume this product is elastic. And elastic meaning that it has price elasticity of demand that is greater than 1. Yeah, greater than 1. Greater than 1 means that denominator is bigger than numerator. I'm sure you agree with me. Yeah, greater than 1. So which means percentage change in quantity demanded is more than percentage change in price. And let's keep our percentage change in price fixed as 10%. We're not changing it. But let's say the percentage change in quantity demand will be like 15%, because for this to be greater than 1, then it has to be more than 10% change in quantity demand. So at 15%, yeah, demand change at 15%, it means that the new quantity demand will reduce by 15%, and that quantity will be, say, 34. Yeah, if you do 85% of 40, that's 34. And if you calculate the revenue, 11 times 34, that gives 374. You can see the revenue has decreased significantly. So implication is that revenue will be less. And what it means is that if you have an elastic product and you try to increase your price, then your revenue will reduce. So which means you should not increase your price if your product is elastic, because the rate at which people will change for a new product, the rate at which people will reduce their demand for your product will be higher than the price that you have increased with. And in that case, your overall revenue will reduce. And it's vice versa. You get similar opposite benefit if you reduce your price, because it means that when you reduce your price, the rate at which people will come for your product will be much higher and your revenue will go up. So which means if you are a company that has a product that is elastic, then your strategy should rather be to reduce price and not to increase price. Please take note. Another is inelastic, which means less than 1. Still 10% rise in price. We expect the quantity demand to also reduce because the price has gone up. But however, because it's inelastic, this time around we expect the demand to decrease at a lower than 10%, let's say 5%, because it's inelastic. So in that case, this will be 38 then we have revenue of 418. You can see now revenue is more. So the interpretation is that if you have a product that is inelastic, enjoy the increase in price because it's inelastic. An example of this type of product is a necessity, maybe like a medication. If you increase the price of a medication, relatively your revenue will not drop because people need the medication. They will still have to buy it. They might not buy as much as they used to, trying to avoid wastages and all of that because it's now a bit expensive, but they will still buy. So you don't reduce your price to maximize your revenue if your product is inelastic. You must rather increase your price because it's an inelastic product. Reducing your price for inelastic product will reduce your overall revenue, which will be opposite of what we are seeing here. So take note, that is the practical implication of elasticity of demand, which you must be comfortable to explain, because you can have a table like this and a question will be asked, or just a theoretical question that will require you to answer that.